Welcome back to the Bella Backstage podcast. I'm your host, Isabella Mall. Today I'm here with Dom Soto.
Hi.
And I'm so excited to talk about all things social media and being an actress. Let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have a degree in acting, minor in screenwriting, and then during COVID, I kind of fell into the whole social media thing, just trying to stay busy, creative, and just not, lose my mind during the global pandemic. And it started leading into something, and I decided to use social media as a tool in my creative journey because the goal and the dream has always been to be a working actor, have acting pay the bills. And I think social media is such a key asset that as we step into a more modern age that there's not a lot of classes, you can't really teach that, and I think it's something that should be taught, and I wasn't taught that at university. And so just taking what I know and trying to implement that into my acting career.
So just learning how to market yourself other than those headshots in your package.
Absolutely. I did have a course in college, and it was the business of acting. And I feel that, I graduated 2 years ago, so I'm sure the curriculum has changed, but I think social media is an asset of that marketing yourself because obviously so many people are so talented, but I remember learning in school that only not even 10% of the roles you get will be based off your talent. It's who you know, the looks and all that. And now we're into this new digital age where I have friends that are in casting that are telling me, okay, now they're not just looking at can this person act, but does this person have a social media presence? Do they have red carpet experience? Do they have any PR training? Because if you already have sort of a presence, you kind of know the ins and outs of the business outside of just coming on set and acting.
Definitely. Yeah. How did you get into acting?
I'd say in high school theater. I wasn't really familiar with stage acting. Obviously, loved watching TV shows, movies, all that. And then in high school, I saw a production of Hairspray, and I was like, what is this? I love it. I don't care whatever this next year show is, I'm going to go out for it. We did High School Musical, and I booked it, and it's junior year of high school. Nothing else is giving me joy. And, everyone's like, I'm applying to this college. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go to school for acting. My parents were really supportive, and I didn't have a dream school, and I just kind of applied and tried to find BFA programs that really fit me and what I needed. I saw a lot of BA programs, BFA. I did a lot of auditions and had multiple offers, but I eventually found the school that was right for me and got my training at 2 years stage, 2 years screen, and really grateful that I have that training under my belt.
How fun. And what's your favorite? Do you like stage more, or do you like acting for the camera?
I would say I'm definitely biased. I love camera acting. It's just what I'm more familiar with. However, I think that there is such a joy of onstage acting and the adrenaline. They always say, don't let the crowd affect you, but if you got that Saturday matinee and people are asleep and you got a lot of gaps in the show, you're going to feel it. And that audience just plays such a role. You've been rehearsing these shows sometimes for months, and this joke that you've told for months, you're like, yeah, okay, insert laughter. By the time you get that first laugh, you're like, oh wow, this actually is kind of funny. It's
the community.
It kind of gives you that instant gratification that film doesn't always. And I know is living in a modern age, we often really like instant gratification. So theater allows you to have that.
Definitely. Yeah. Have you done any theater?
Not as much as I would like. I got thrown into it really late. So I did 3 shows in high school. I did 2 smaller productions in college, but there was COVID. So my time on our big stage was in COVID. So it was all through Zoom. I've been recently stepping into stage, doing more auditions because I can do film auditions and it's just go in, go out, do my thing, leave it all. But stage auditions for me, I feel like they give me a lot of anxiety, specifically ones with the dance call. I would say I would rank myself as an actor, my acting, my singing, and my dance. I'm a mover. You tell me to learn something, I will learn it. But that fast turnaround in an audition, there's okay, learn it, rehearse it, and then come back tomorrow and do it. And my brain, I just don't have any dancing experience. I struggle with that. So I try to push myself to do more theater auditions because how else are you going to get over the fear if you don't do it?
I completely agree with that. I feel like recently I've been thinking about going back to stage, and it's so nerve-wracking, especially if you've been trained and you know those auditions and those rooms with those people for TV, commercial, print are so like you go in, you go out, and that's it.
Yeah, there's not very much of a connection with film auditions, which I don't like, but it's also like it doesn't feel I don't feel as wronged when I don't get something. I'm like, they probably didn't even remember my name. But whereas in a theater audition, I feel like they make it so personable. And specifically, like if you're auditioning in certain areas, it's very much of a... I feel like certain directors will take over. And it's like, okay, we get it. But, you have a different director for each show. You're going to have if one director is directing West Side Story, if you have 3 different people directing, you'll probably get 3 different entirely different cast because it's a different vision. And if you have the same 2 people directing all the theaters in the area, they're going to have that same vision and cast the same people, which I get it. You know they're going to deliver, what they can do, but they're also not the only talent. And that is my personal gripe with theater, specifically where I grew up and just before I moved to LA, I noticed it was a lot of the same people getting cast, and they're great and they always deliver, but they're not the only talented people. And trying to, it feels very, very catty. And I think film, it's just you kind of show up, you do your thing because it's more you do your own work. Theater is very collaborative, which is great, but that's where there's so much drama, there's showmances, there's just so much tea. And at the end of the day, theater always to me kind of feels back like summer camp because you're around them so much. Whereas film, it just feels very like we put our hearts into this one thing and then but theater is very like.
Do you think it's because like you're a more independent person when it comes to that thing, or?
Yeah, I definitely think that has something to do with it. And just I've seen a lot of toxicity in the theater community and I just haven't personally felt the most welcome just being a queer woman of color. And a lot of these shows, I was fortunate to live in areas that are predominantly like Latina, Black, so all the talent is POC, but the directors are white, which there's nothing wrong with, but it's just if you're doing a show that has a predominantly POC cast, it's just there's a little bit of a disconnect, and that I'm just not the biggest fan
I completely get that. It's definitely hard because we're at a time with the industry where everyone's claiming or wants to be more involved with the diversity and having all types of races, religion, size, inclusivity, and all these different things. But then again, the higher ups are not in those communities, or they don't identify with those communities. So they're taking the same model, the same actor, the same influencer that is part of these different little groups that they identify with or that they are, and they say, well, we are changing, look at this. But then the one model, the one actress, every campaign, every social media ad, so I feel like we're getting there, which is, it's still great, but it's not where it should be.
And it also goes into film as well. It's okay, now we're getting the representation on screen, but we need that representation behind the scenes too. If we have this story with, like, if we're telling a Black story, like about a experience being a Black woman, not saying that a white man or anybody of a different race can't tell that story. It's just, are you having people who share that background assisting you in telling that story? Because you only know so much if it's not your experience. So many factors that go into it, which is the way that I try to keep myself sane in this process. It's very easy being a woman of color to go into like, well, I wasn't cast because I was the only Black person in the room. I wasn't cast because of this. I wasn't cast because they didn't know how to do my hair on set. When in reality, it could be something as simple as like, you look like the director's ex-girlfriend, and he was like, she's great, but she looks too much like or maybe you look too much like the lead. Or as someone too who has like a little bit of a screenwriting background, a good screenwriter, obviously, you write these characters and you have like an idea in your head, but a good screenwriter will more cast off of the performance. Like, yeah, in my head, I've talked to several screenwriters and like, you know, in my head, I wrote this character and they were white in my head, but this person showed up and was the character, and they just happen to be black, happen to be Latina, they happen to be indigenous. So it's more like the essence, and those are something I think we're shifting into, and this newer age, and just people really caring more about authentic storytelling, because it's always, you know, there's always the why do you bring race into this, and it's something that needs to be talked about. It seems that in Hollywood the default has always been white, and that's not, you know, all these lead, even it's something that's so deeply embedded within us that we don't even realize. Even something as silly as like a TikTok edit, and I'm like, well, yes, but why is it all only white men?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fine men of color.
It's crazy how much we don't realize how much our society has like put these boxes into place. And if you're not educating yourself or hearing other voices or diversifying what you're listening to, what you're watching, you don't know. And you just have these practices already in your head, and what you see from your own family or friends, that you continue doing it and don't realize that it's not a right thing to do. It's an issue, or even just being educated on the topic and realizing your behaviors.
Absolutely. And it takes you, it is work to unlearn, because even if you are a person of color, we still have stuff that is so deeply embedded within us that we don't realize that you have to actively learn. And so someone who doesn't come from that culture or that background, that didn't grow up around it, they have to one, like, educate themselves, but also be willing to listen. And because you can never truly empathize, but you can learn and be like, you know, I can never truly empathize and feel what you're feeling, but educate me so I can know, and I can be a better ally and help support you.
Everyone should go to therapy.
Everyone should be in therapy. I would definitely say it is a little difficult operating these spaces, but I know that I'm here to take up space. I fell into the geek side of social media, and I was very fortunate that the people that I was already following, that are now some of my dearest friends, were almost all people of color, women, and queer. And so as I gained a following and saw that outside of my For You page, the people that were essentially representing the geekdom weren't people that looked like me, and I'm hearing these takes, it is a little disheartening, but it just gives me more of a drive to take up space and be, instead of as draining as it can be, being like, I'm at these amazing events and I only see 3 other people that look like me. It's very easy to fall into that, like, kind of sadness, and I'm not seeing myself, but then also taking that as fuel and drive to be like, I'm here. And I also try to make it a point to, when I bring people to these events, bringing other people of color, queer creators, or people who just want their foot in the door, that share experiences that I do, because when I win, they win. And I'm here to uplift my fellow queer community and all marginalized communities. Remembering why I'm doing this, it's very easy to get caught up, you know, in the fame, the exposure, because I'm at some of these like really high profile events, and instead of letting it go to my head and my ego, remembering that I'm here to do a job, for one, literally, but also my presence is a stepping stone for other queer people of color. And I am also very aware that I am a lighter skinned Black woman, so I do have some privilege as well, being closer to the European beauty standard rather than some of my dark skinned friends. And so I also take it as a way for me to help uplift other creators of color. And I'm here to uplift voices, because that's what happened to me. I had people that I looked up to, other women of color, other queer creators, that brought me along because they saw that light in me. So when I see a light in someone, I want to bring them along, because, you know, even the people that are inviting, they can only see so much. So as somebody who does social media and is on the other side for a brand, it is very hard to just see all this amazing talent. There's so much talent on the internet, and everybody's For You pages are different. And if I can bring a little bit of my For You page and to take up space, we can get these spaces to be more diverse and just show like, wow, look what happens. Like, I went to an event and it wasn't just all Latina and Black people invited. The crew working was also. The food was good. The music was banging. And we were all like, see what happens when you invite Black people? Like, please. And everything was like, it was just such a inviting environment. I left that super full, and we just had a blast. And it's like, this is what happens when not only do you have people of color in front, but also behind the scenes. And I think that also translates into the film world and theater as well, how we talked about earlier, having people on both sides, because it's like a well-oiled machine.
I think that's really special because not only are you're showing how humble you are about everything, which is great, and it shows that really being an advocate for others and being an advocate for yourself and caring for others, because when we have these connections, not everyone will reach out and bring other people to uplift people and to push them in the right direction in the industry. And great that you're giving that chance, that opportunity to other people, because there's so many people in this industry who want to get in, but they can't. They don't know anyone, or they're not being accepted for XYZ. And yeah, I think there needs to be more people like you to help others, because one person can only do so much, and you're doing a great job at it, but maybe some other people, they don't know how, they don't understand. Absolutely. They want to help, but they can't. But I think that's pretty amazing, because a lot of people, they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. People use each other, and then they never talk to each other again. There's so many things.
It's very hard navigating. I look at social media for me as kind of training and PR training for sure, for when I can be an actor full time, when that's something that falls into my lap. And because it's so hard, because I asked my dad, I said, you get a call in the middle of the night, I'm in jail. What am I in jail for? And he's like, standing up for someone's rights. And so it's very hard for me sometimes to be in these very toxic environments where everybody's like, oh, we don't like that person. And I'm like, well, then why are we acting like we are? But then it's also, there's that level of professionalism. Well, where it's like finding that line. Okay, we're going to be professional, but also I don't agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with how you're treating people. And I'm going to let you know that in a very respectful way. And those spaces can be very toxic, and a lot of interactions can feel transactional. And it's hard. I wish there was like I could tell people that there's just like, oh yeah, that's, if they do this is not, but it's so hard, because I have friends that are in high places that I want to ask, but I never want anyone to feel like I'm just using them, because it's so hard. I have friends that I've been friends with for years, and I'm scared to even ask them, like, ask them for a little favor. And I think, though, I had a friend who's been kind of doing this for a while, and he said, you have to be weary of people who are trying to steal your light. You want somebody who wants to share your light and not dim your light and steal it. And that can be very hard. And it's just, I think of it kind of like dating as well. You stay guarded until these people show up. Everyone can say these things and make these promises, but it's who's actually there. Who is there that's going to be a PA for you on a short film where you're like, I can pay you in pizza, but that's about it. People who believed in you from when, you couldn't pay them, but they just genuinely saw your light and believed in you and were willing to sacrifice their time because they genuinely care about you and want to succeed. And I think it goes along with what you said about uplifting like others and a sense of community. Issa Rae had a really good moment on where she was being interviewed, and they said, like, everybody wants to network up, but you need to network across. Make your own connections across, because you don't know. You don't know who's gonna, that person that you were rude to, that could be the next director. You never know. Everybody knows somebody, and you never know who, you know, most of the time interactions are small, and if you're just kind, it's like it feels like it can go overlooked, which it can be, but a bad interaction, someone's going to remember that for the rest of their life. I'm sure we all remember our middle school bullies, and I'm sure those bullies don't even remember bullying us. But it's that stuff that sticks with you, and then that's the last thing. You also never know, like, that could be your partner's sister or mom or something, and then it's like, oh, that's awkward. You never know who's somebody on the low. You see when you watch movies that long list of credits, that could be the person
Could be
that
your
you yelled
neighbor.
at. That could be your neighbor.
Could be the person at the grocery store.
It's easy to hide behind a screen as somebody who's in that world. And unfortunately, one of the cons of growing on social media is the hatred, the trolls. And it's really scary. There's certain levels to it, especially again, like being a woman, that level of safety, because there's also sometimes there's the sexual undertones, there's the racial undertones, and then God forbid you call it out, because then it's all about race, and it's like, oh, it wasn't, but it is. And as we mentioned earlier, it's so deeply ingrained in us that we don't even realize.
But the amount of things that we are not told in school,
And how it's watered down.
Yeah.
And they want to make it more digestible for children, which understand, but it wasn't digestible for the children that had to endure all of this during slavery. Even like this classic story we were taught about Thanksgiving, American propaganda. It was not like that. And if we were to just expose the authentic history, but it's also who's writing our history books. It all goes back to who's behind the scenes. And it's just like, same thing, you know, I'm not really big on religion right now. I'm more of a spiritual person. But, you know, the common debate is that, you know, homosexuality is a sin in the Bible. And the verse that everyone likes to use is, I believe it's Leviticus 18:12. And it says, like, a man shall not lie with another man. In the original Hebrew translation, the translation was, a man shall not lie with a boy. It's talking about pedophilia. But in the early 40s, more conservative companies bought the publication for Bibles. So that's how that narrative started getting spun. I remember during like Black Lives Matter, when it was really, when it was trendy, because, you know, a lot of activism, unfortunately, is performative. But during Black Lives Matter, it's like, okay, it's cool to care. And I had people that would say, like, I just turn it off because it's too hard to watch. And I was like, that's very fair. And obviously take care of your mental health. But what about the people that are living that, that are
they
having,
can't escape
they
their
can't
own
escape
life.
that. They wish they could turn it off. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's exactly what's going on in Palestine right now, is everybody, it feels so far away. But also we're at a time in society where we have more in common with people in Gaza because of the internet and stuff. Like, I have friends that are like, one of my best friends in the Xbox Live party chat lives in Gaza, and they would play like Call of Duty. We have it at our fingers and we can see it in real time.
We have the resources in order to see
it uncensored. And that's why, you know, Big Gov is trying to shut down platforms like TikTok or really, really censor it. So it's like that weird middle ground where social media is such a beautiful thing, because I've met some of my best friends through social media, and I'm able to be exposed to so much diverse knowledge and hear the same news, but from different people who have different points of views, and understand it in a way that I wouldn't be able to get from like CNN.
Yeah.
But on the con, there's also these people with money that own these, that are trying to suppress that authentic content that is getting that real message out. Activism is a big part of who I am, and I always try to include that in even being a fan of like superheroes and stuff. And I notice anytime I talk about political things, that content tends to not do as well, which is really unfortunate. And I've gotten flagged on some platforms for talking about these things. And it's so disheartening, because you get caught in this, well, I've built this platform for years, and caring about people, I can get this taken away, starting from scratch. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is definitely hard, because it's like it's building something, and to just have it taken away just for showing that you have empathy is truly sinister. More than anything is a balance, and learning that if you are an empathetic person and you are actively trying to do good in this world, it is almost impossible to be a perfect person on all fronts. It's like, okay, I'm a vegetarian, but I have my iPhone and I drive a car. I'm lowering my carbon footprint, but I still am doing all this stuff. I love Disney. I have a Disney pass, but Disney as a company isn't necessarily the best. Even for people who work at Starbucks, those are not terrible people. They're just trying to pay their bills, and looking at it more, reminding myself that I am a good person. I do care, and that some person with no profile picture in my comments doesn't get to determine my worth as a person. I know where my money goes, where I'm donating. I know I do my research. I know I physically show up to protest for causes that are important to me. And it's all a balance. I can watch a piece of media, but also know what the studios are doing behind the scenes. But also, just because I'm just going to use, because I don't want to call anyone out, but a big company, if they have ties and are donating to groups that are going to hurt me as a queer woman of color, that doesn't mean that every single worker in that company and the people that worked on their newest film are like that. And it's a hard line, and it just is how much you care to do your research. There's things like with the new Scream movie, Melissa Barrera was expressing her support of Palestinians, and they let her go. And there's been a call to boycott the new film, which, as a spooky Latina, I love Scream, but I care about the Palestinians more, so I'll bootleg that. And then on the flip side, any project Melissa's in, we have to support, just to show the studios that, okay, you took this role from her, but you're not gonna tarnish who she is. She will work a day again. Yeah. And that is also something that's fearful, being an actor, me speaking up about these things. And how does this affect, is this why I'm not getting cast? Is this why I'm not getting invited to certain events, because I'm so vocal? But then I have to remind myself, why would I want to be there if they don't, if they're not down with the cause,
and they're not with what you believe in.
Exactly. And there is a way too, knowing again that even though I love Disney so much, but I can also recognize all the wrong they're doing, and it's finding a balance. There's been calls to, they own so much, so you can't just boycott Disney. It has to be very targeted, because that's how it's very effective.
Welcome back to the section of the episode we like to call Fact or Myth. Dom is going to tell us a fact or myth about social media.
One myth that I would love to debunk about social media is that you need to have a big following to be in these really, really bougie spaces. You do not. Unfortunately, it's all about who you know. Fact, it is a little cringe, and you just need to get over that and post that video, because if the cringe was holding me back, I wouldn't be doing it. And it is hard sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little cringy sometimes. But I mean, hey, you can make a whole career out of it. Myth: being a content creator is not a real job. It is a real job, and it's something that not a lot of people can do. And once you try it, or just are friends with somebody who does it, you know that it takes a lot of work. Now, I'm not going to say it's the hardest job in the world, because it's not. For my job, I get to make TikToks, which sounds a little silly, but there is a lot that goes into it, because everybody wants to get that viral moment. And it's not just about being viral at this point, because it's honestly kind of easy to go viral, specifically on TikTok. It's sustaining that. gauging an audience, keeping people wanting to come back. And then if you're doing it for a brand specifically, how do you target that? How do you translate these views into sales? How do you drive consumers off of the app to your website to buy your product? That's a whole other ball game. So it is very much a real job, and nobody should ever be ashamed if that is their main source of income.
I don't even do it for a job, and trying to keep up just so that my name is out there for castings or anything like that. It's a actual full-time job in itself, just posting, updating what my profile looks on Instagram, how it looks on TikTok, and then linking all of those for other ways, and Linktree and all these different things that go into social media that you wouldn't even know. And planning out the time to first film, then change outfits, to then film more, and then, you know, having that time to edit and then post, and then research what should I put in the caption, what tags, do I need to put any tags, do I need to tag anyone, do I need to put a location, blah, 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 blah. There's so many things that it does sound silly, but when my friends or when people see that I'm doing these things, tagging brands, having to post on the story or on the reels, or it has to be this long, has to be this short, they're like, wow, that's a lot. Because a lot of people don't, not to say that you don't understand, but they might not know how much goes into actually posting all the content.
And it's kind of like, even for people who like movies and TV, think of how much work goes into that. It's like a mini movie. So, but most of these creators, it's a one-man show. So not only do you have to edit your own content, you have to film it, you have to carve out the time, lighting, this and that. And another myth is that creators all make a bunch of money. That is a huge myth. Most creators that I know have full-time jobs, sometimes 2 or 3, myself included. And a lot of them are just doing this for free. I have friends with millions of followers who don't get a cent from any of these platforms. It's actually very difficult to make money on these platforms. The platforms make it so hard to monetize. There's so many guidelines. A lot of this money comes off the app through brand deals and stuff. And that's very hard to even make yourself seem marketable to have a brand deal, because brands still have, you know, markers they want to hit, and it's really difficult. And then if you chose a niche like I did, like pop culture, staying up to date with all this news, not on top of like what is trending within these apps, what is trending in the culture, in news. We all share the same brain, we all have the same thoughts. So now it's okay, how do I word this so it feels special to me? Or am I just the first person to talk about it and my video did well because I was the first? So being able to do a full-time job, but also having to come home after working a 9 to 5 and then consuming the 3 shows that came out and then making videos about it. It's a lot of work.
Relating it back to acting and social media is something that has changed since I've started acting, because at first it was a lot of, no, you don't really need to be on social media, but you can, and it can help you. And now we're kind of going into the age, like you mentioned, it's a lot about the followers. Can this person pull in an audience? Can they market the film well? Can they market this well? Having a niche in general, it's just hard, because there's 2 different things with acting, and then you want it to be consistent and look the same, but then you don't want it to be too, it's so many things that go into it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is very difficult, and it's not something, I hope, and I think maybe now there's more like classes, but again, every person's journey is different. And that's one of the things that I love with social media that I think has really kept me sane with my acting journey, is that everybody's journey is different on social media. Same thing with acting. There's people who've done it by the book, more traditional, went to school, did this, did that, and got an agent and this. There's people who've never taken a class and just got lucky. There's people like Rachel Zegler, who went viral on Twitter and then was our Maria in West Side Story. Now look at her now. Well, she's going to be our Snow White. She's one of the biggest names now in Hollywood. So nobody's journey, the journey of a creative is not linear, and looking at it and just making sure that you feel fulfilled. If you're not feeling fulfilled, none of these brand deals, I mean, the money does kind of help, but still at the end of the day, that is not worth sacrificing like how you feel. It's important to you, may not be important to me, and vice versa. It's figuring out what means something to you and how you keep yourself sane in a really hard time in the world, not just being in the industry, but just like the world, where I love movies, but I do feel that we are really stuck in a sequel nostalgic rut. And it's really hard because there is a want for original stories. I mean, look at A24. They're doing it. And we need more studios like A24. And so many of my creative friends, they are telling those stories. It's just like, they can't tell as many because of the budget and just there's so many things.
The platforms is
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Sad.
It is, but we're here to change the industry. And if it's not going to change, then we got to burst down the doors and change it ourselves. And I see it happening, and just even seeing it with people on social media. I have friends that have been blessed with so many amazing opportunities. Some of them even just like being in films, like, and they wouldn't have been able to do that if it weren't for social media. Some people signing with agencies like CAA, who, if they wouldn't have just started yapping in the camera, if they were too afraid of being cringe during COVID and didn't do it, they would probably be still at their 9 to 5. So I think my biggest advice for any creative, whether it's you want to start content, you want to be an actor, I would definitely say utilize social media. Just start recreating your favorite scenes from your favorite shows and movies. Post it on TikTok. Maybe it'll get 3 views, but the biggest names on social media, with a few exceptions, all started there with no followers, 3 followers. Just we're doing this. And that's the biggest thing, because you never know. Now casting directors have TikToks. Celebrities have burner accounts. A lot of celebrities that they have burner accounts and they see stuff. You never know who's watching. But if you don't try, how will you ever know?
This is your sign to do it.
Yeah.
Do the damn thing.
Do the damn thing.
Do it.
Whatever it is. I have so many talented friends, and I'm like, you should post it on TikTok. And they're like, I don't know. I was like, you should post it on TikTok. I was like, you're hot. You'll get followers. You're talented. You'll get followers. But it is a lot of work, and it's like another job. It's like you're basically working for free. And that is hard. But, being a creative is all about the hustle bustle.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Stay educated. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.